We're back for another episode on the Shredding for Gold podcast. I'm your host and star athlete, Emily Trepanier, and I'm so happy that you've made this podcast a part of your day today. Just a note before we get started, if you'd like to listen to this podcast, our home of the podcast can be found at www.whyexcuse.com/shredding-for-gold. So that's where you can find the podcast, and that's the home of the podcast. I also want to give a huge shout out to the people at Blueberry who are doing such an amazing job keeping my podcast on the air and helping out with any sort of troubleshooting that comes up as we get this podcast on the airways. So a big shout out to those people at Blueberry. You guys are doing a fantastic job, so keep up the great work. And another huge shout out to, I'm going to call him my podcast producer. He isn't 100% sure that's what he wants to be called yet. But honestly, I'm going to call him the podcast producer because he's producing my podcast. Even though I'm doing all the recording, he's doing all the editing and uploading. So he's basically producing my podcast. So we're going to big shout out to Maxwell Ivy Jr. For being a super awesome podcast producer. And it's super fun to be working with him and looking forward to all of our future adventures working together. So episode 4, we're up to episode 4 of the Shredding for Gold podcast, people. How exciting is this, right? Also, if you haven't heard, we are now on Apple Podcasts. So if you ask Alexa to play Shredding for Gold podcast on Apple Podcasts, she will now play it for you. I think it actually also works on your Google Assistant as well. But someone can, maybe I'll try that out after and see if it works, and I'll get back to you guys on that. So yeah, we're up to episode 4 on the Shredding for Gold podcast. It's been super fun, honestly. How are you guys liking it so far? Make sure wherever you're listening to the podcast, give us a rating and leave us a review, because we want to know how things are. What are you liking so far? What would you like to see different on the podcast? And if you have any interesting upcoming ideas that you'd like to hear on the podcast, or you think might be a great addition for this podcast, let us know. So yeah, rating, reviews. If you follow us on Facebook on the Team Starfish page, you can leave it there, or you can, if you follow the WY Excuse Network on Facebook as well, you can leave it there. Or if you want and you're comfortable, you can also email me at trepanieremily@yahoo.ca. We'd love to hear from you, so reach out. And yeah, so today on the podcast, super excited about this one, as I have been with all the other ones that I've done so far. We're going to keep with the theme of chatting with the Ontario coaches, and there's a bunch of them still, so look forward to that. But today we're going to go back a ways, and we're going to chat with my first ever gym coach trainer. His name is Paul Tavaras, and he was, I'm going to say, my first official gym coach trainer that I worked with when I first started towards my goal of getting to the Paralympics as a blind snowboarding athlete. So that's what's going to be happening on episode 4. So very excited for this. Hope you all enjoy it. And let's get started and it's time to introduce Paul Tavaras, so let's listen in. Okay, welcome to the for Gold podcast, Paul. We are super happy to have you on the podcast today. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me. I am doing well.
Excellent. All right, so let's start it off super easy. Who are you? Describe yourself so the listeners get to know you a little bit.
Okay, I am a 40-year-old man. I am a father of four, so I'm getting a little long in the tooth here. I currently reside in London, Ontario. I've lived in London for about 12, 13 years. And in that time, I worked in the fitness industry in a variety of capacities as a manager, as a personal trainer, and then eventually got into the therapeutic side of things. And I am now currently in school at the Canadian Academy of Osteopathy in Hamilton. So
Nice.
that's me in a nutshell.
That's awesome. And so you talk about you're in the therapy side now. What is one of your main techniques that you use for that?
So I kind of when I was a trainer, I found that I always was really into people's goals and getting them there, but sometimes um, there was a hindrance to that, and sometimes people needed more than just lifting weights or gaining cardiovascular strength and those things. They would have impingements, ailments. They would have um, um, issues that needed to be fixed before they could even begin on those journeys. So I
Right.
found sometimes that I was kind of at a crossroads that I couldn't even begin the journeys with them until we kind of had done some corrective exercises. And at that point, I didn't know anything about it. And so I decided to learn about it. And I started to study the human body. I took some certifications and got a certification in fascial stretch therapy, which just kind of brought me down the rabbit hole, so to speak. I started getting more intensive and onto the side of remedial exercise and therapy, and then eventually decided to kind of jump both feet in and get into osteopathy, which is a manual therapy, and again, all focused on the body and structure and integrity.
Awesome. And I know what FST is, but some of our listeners may not know. So can you, I know it's a big topic, but just for the sake of our listeners, can you give a brief description of what that is and how that helps?
Absolutely. So fascial stretch therapy, as some have dubbed it, FST, was kind of born actually in the United States by Anne and Chris Frederick, and it was brought to Canada by Kevin Darby, who owns Darby Training Systems. It is a certification in a course. Again, it is a manual therapy. Basically, the person is on the table, and the facilitator is taking the patient through stretches, through passive movement, both active and passive. And again, the whole ideology and it encompasses the idea that fascia is everywhere on the body, and that fascial lines connect these big major lines, big major muscles, really affects overall integrity and structure of the body. So it's kind of their approach to kind of their approach to bring that integrity and the structural integrity of the body.
Awesome. Awesome. Cool. And we've definitely used that a lot with me. So let's get into how you and I met. Do you remember how we met and where?
I want to say it was at
I remember, so let's see.
I think it was at Good Life Fitness in Palisade on Oxford, now
Was.
Adelaide.
It
And
was.
you know what? I do remember this. I remember thinking it was such a really, really neat goal in terms of the things that we talked about, what you wanted to do, why you're interested in getting some personal training. And I tell you, it. I was happy Um, it's it's such a neat goal and a lofty goal, which is amazing. I think sometimes, um, myself included, sometimes we get into what we want to do and we set goals, but nothing like this. The goal for you was always to compete in the Paralympics and
Yeah.
things like be stronger, faster, change your body composition, all these things. Those are just byproducts. I mean, you'll do that along the way as you get there. But it's just was a neat goal and an awesome kind of opportunity for me. I know that sounds weird, but it was an opportunity for me to be on that journey as well.
For sure. And so, keeping with that theme, what were your initial thoughts when you heard you were going to be training a blind snowboarding athlete?
Man, my first thought was, geez, I'm sighted. Is that the correct word? Sighted?
Yep.
I am not a good snowboarder. Why the hell or why me? But you know what? Yeah, I'm sure I was. I bet you, if you asked both of us, I bet you I was more scared going into session one than you were. But honestly, in terms of growth, it's an opportunity for me to grow. Right?
For sure.
It's it's amazing, some of the differences that you can note and pick up on in yourself when working with different populations of clients, be it at any ability level, sighted or unsighted,
Right.
and in any way. I always learn from my clients, my patients. So I think the big takeaway is, what can you learn from them, and I hope they learn from me as well. But
Yes, definitely. Definitely learned lots from you. I use a lot of what I learned with just a lot of like the training that I'm doing right now, teaching my new coaches and stuff. And it's been really fun to like teach them and have them learn different things too. So they've been really excited about that too. So
exactly, you know what? It's one of those things that you never want to just stand there and count reps. I mean, it's there should be an educational portion side to it.
Yeah.
And again, I can't stress enough that was a two-way street that I learned quite a bit as well. So
awesome. Can you explain or describe some adaptations or techniques that you use during our training sessions? Anything
yeah,
that
so I can remember. Do you remember we would make little templates so that you could utilize
for
machines?
the
Remember that?
bikes and the treadmill and everything. I remember those templates.
So, I mean, we had machines that wouldn't move. They would stay in the same spot. But I would cut out a little a paper template, and then you would put Braille over it, and we would laminate it.
Oh
So that
yeah.
when you
We
went to
also
the
put
machines,
we also put like different sticky tack material on it that was tactile and everything too.
it was awesome. It was smart.
It was really
I'm sure it wasn't my idea. It was too smart to be my idea. But,
I don't know whose idea it was then.
but also too, like a big part, and there's always different styles of learners. So, some people are kinesthetic, they need to do it with their hands. Some people are visual, and a big part of personal training is show me, teach me, right? So so it presents a different kind of style. You have to be obviously very good at explaining it. No matter what, there's still the coaching aspect of it. If someone's performing a movement, whether they're watching me do it or I'm coaching them through my voice or by touch, obviously, that can be utilized, right? So, it sounds crazy, but I didn't feel like there was any major, we didn't have to reinvent the wheel. It is what it is. And to be honest, you moved extraordinarily well. So you made my job easy.
I had actually did an interview with Steve a few weeks ago on episode 1, and he was saying similar. He didn't really have to adapt a whole lot. It's just mainly just just the whole like communication piece. Obviously, you have to like make sure he had to make sure always that he would be describing everything
Exactly.
super well so that I would understand. And then if it wasn't like understanding it, he would like move my like arms and legs around and stuff. So it was easier for me to understand. And then we would like work together to figure out like different wording that we could use. And it'd always be like the same wording. So there's always
And
familiar.
and if I said to you, give me a motion like a medicine ball slam, I'm sure you could, right? Like you would know, right? Like you would
Yeah.
know how that feels, like how
Yeah.
that moves, right?
So
So
we worked a lot on the medicine ball slams. I remember.
maybe too much, but I mean, it's again, like, when I think of, the goals and what you wanted and those fast movements, and
Yeah.
that's you could tie to anybody can do medicine ball slams,
Yeah.
simply from a cardiovascular or a caloric deficit gain. But I mean, for you it really worked well. Do you remember, even instead of medicine ball slams, we did it with bands, where we would put the bands against, and we would do
Oh,
those, like in CrossFit now they do all those upright rows, right? And we
right.
we were we were doing that with bands because it would have an opposite reaction. So when you pulled on that band, you would it would pull back, and it was again all based on your balance and your reaction. Do you remember that?
I think so, yeah.
It was we even came up with a whole band kind of workout like
That's
that, with the
right. It
rows
was
and
like
pulls.
warm-ups with the bands and everything.
For sure. And again, like, think of how, when you're heading down the hill, whether you're on skis or snowboard or anything, it's that reaction time. The hill's pushing you down the hill. You're flying,
Yeah.
but now you have to adjust, and well, I mean, you I don't have to tell you that,
Yeah, but for the listeners, it's good for them to hear that. So,
but I think that's going back to what I said about the goal. Like, it was such a cool goal. It sounds weird, but it gave me the opportunity to really take sometimes things that are very general, but make it really specific to what you want to do. Um,
right.
like, I know that sounds weird, but sometimes in the fitness industry, things are so vague. What is personal training and what are they going to gain from it? But it was such a neat goal that you really could, like, you had such a concrete idea of what you wanted. It
Yeah.
actually made it easy for me.
Oh, well, that's good. That's good to hear. Awesome. Prior to training with me, did you have any experience training any athletes with various disabilities or any clients with disabilities?
Great question. You know what? I've always had clients of different abilities. I've had
Yeah.
clients that have had, um, um, it's a hard question to answer, because I mean, a disability could have been a car accident, and someone's
Right.
hip, could not work well, or
That's
someone
true.
could have fibromyalgia, or
Mm.
so I've always had clients with different abilities,
Yeah.
and again, I think that goes back to, that's a really good thing for someone,
Mm-hmm.
in a trainer or anybody that's in a coaching or teaching situation, because it helps to well round you, and I also think it helps to challenge you in a positive way.
I feel like
I
it would
also think
also help. It would build like your resource toolkit too, right? So what might work for one, you might be able to like bring some of those aspects into working with another client, or like if you found something
100%.
that worked for one client, it might have not necessarily worked for another one. So you kind of have to like brainstorm and problem solve with them and see what would work and what wouldn't work, right?
Absolutely. And you know what? I would say that you were pretty even keeled, Emily. But sometimes you get people, and they're having off days, be it
Yeah.
through their movements, be it mentally, physically. So it's even if someone um, is a star athlete or well performed, there's still such a thing as that off days. So you always have to kind of you always have to kind of adjust for that. And, you know, a good coach will adjust for that. They'll
Yeah.
watch, you know, they know if someone is, you know, overstressed, or if the
Mhm.
body's just a little taxed, or, you
Yeah.
know, maybe it's a day where we do need to work on mobility because that hip just not moving right. Right. So
Yeah.
it's,
Yep.
it's, you can plan for a whole year, but
Yeah.
you know, the good coaches in my eyes, you know, they'll literally take it day by day. You always have to think about that long-term goal, but you got to work with the person that's in front of you that day, that hour,
For sure.
because it could be different day to day, right?
Yeah. It all depends on like how the like you're feeling, like you said, and like how the muscles are doing and everything. So yeah, that's definitely super important for sure. Okay. So you've already touched on this a little bit, but I wanted to go back to this a little bit more. Name a few things you've learned from training people with various abilities.
Um, you know what? Again, back to it. You, I feel like I probably brought some prejudice, and that's a I don't mean that in a bad word. You know, I just mean I had preconceived ideas. Maybe perhaps
Got it. Okay.
that's a better idea than better wording than prejudice. But you know, it's one of those things. Like again, and I've said this to you. You know, like I've seen you move better, or I've seen you adjust and do things or learn new exercises way better than other people with, you know, that are completely sighted. And again, back to it, you know, you think, you know, people say the words disabilities, but I mean, at the
Yeah.
end of the day, you know, it is quite an even playing field, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting to me. You know, you start to some things I noticed with you. You know, the way your brain worked. You know, that your memory. You know, you would know how many steps it was from the bus to the door. You know, like it would be. You know, just as if I would remember. You know, a way to get home. You know, from a place that I frequented. You know, same
Right.
thing. Like, you know, your mind was very plastic, and I mean that in a way that you can kind of mold and adapt that way. So that's one thing that you know, hopefully I emulated, and
For
I
sure.
learned to be a little more plastic and moldable at that point.
For sure. That's awesome. Okay. So these are a few fun questions for you.
Okay.
What are your 5 favorite exercises that you like to teach your clients?
Whew, 5 favorite exercises.
Yeah.
I was always loved teaching squatting, squats, and you know, there's obviously there's you know there's variations and ways that you can do all exercises, but to me, again, when you talk, you know, people say the word functionality and things like that. You know, squatting is every day. I mean, you can't sit on the toilet without squatting. You can't get in a car without squatting. I mean, it's just something that, again, we've been doing since the dawn of time. So definitely squats is something that I always loved to kind of take clients through and teach. And again, there's no one way to do it, or there's no right and wrong to it. Everybody's got different patterns and different ways, but it was definitely something that I would always include in that. We talked about it before, but I used to love medicine ball slams. Again, you know, you can look at it from just a standpoint of a metabolic movement. You're moving hard, and there's lots of muscles moving. There's hand-eye coordination with the ball. There's timing. There's, you know, again, you're incorporating the squat into that. There's core, but you know, I think there's another side to it. I used to have a client. She was a nurse, and I can't imagine being a nurse in a time like this, or at any
Oh,
time, to be honest.
yeah.
And she used to come in, and some days she would just look at me. We'd be, you know, warm up, and I'd be asking her how her day, and you know, we'd be 10 seconds into the session, and she'd be asking if she could do medicine ball slams, just because she felt a release, right? Like it was, you
Um,
know. So
that
it's
makes sense.
yeah, you
Slamming
know,
stuff around helps
and
you release.
she would start slamming that ball, and the whole gym would stop. It was amazing. I loved it. I learned at the first time, I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. But it got to the point where I loved it, and she would go at it. She'd go hard, and she felt so much better after. So she
That's
definitely felt
amazing.
winded, But
Yeah.
uh, just from a standpoint of the mental aspect of that, like a lot of people will take up things like boxing or like close combat sports, or even
Right.
just resistance training. People find that release. So
That's
I
true.
loved medicine ball slams. That was always something that kind of um, I don't know, always stuck out. I really enjoyed taking people through progressions. Things like, to me, like a pull up
Mm.
or a chin up are extraordinarily hard,
I'm
especially when
working on those right now, actually. It's very exciting.
it's really cool. And so I loved going through progressions for that, for chin ups and pull ups. And then exact same concept and idea, I would say push ups. I loved push-ups because same thing. One, they're really hard, and there's really good progressions and digressions. You can go both ways from it. So was definitely something that I always enjoyed doing as well. So I would say, yeah, medicine ball slams, squats, push-ups, chin-ups. Is that 5?
That's 4. That's 4.
Who would have thought, eh?
One
A
more.
trainer that can't count to 5. I think we're a dime a dozen everywhere.
It's all good.
Last but not least, let's just say one that I feel like you and I did quite a bit, and love incorporating into it is a dynamic lunge. So like a walking lunge, or it doesn't have to be in one direction, forward, back, lateral. But that was something that I know you did a hell of a lot of those, didn't you, Emily?
Oh, yes. I'm now doing walking reverse lunges, which is
See,
super exciting.
awesome.
Those were super hard at first, though.
And they're super hard for everyone.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's the average person. If you told them to stand there on one leg with their eyes closed, forget it. Right? Like,
Yeah.
honestly, and any listeners out there, I challenge you to press pause, close your eyes, and bring your knee up. I'm going to guess that it doesn't take long for you to topple over. So you
I'm
can
gonna give
imagine.
them like 5 seconds and then they'll topple over.
But it's quite challenging. So it was pretty neat and pretty.
Awesome. Okay. One of the many questions I often get asked by a lot of people is if coaching an athlete is hard. Usually I tell them that I'm sure coaching an athlete comes with its challenges, but at the same time, it's also very rewarding and exciting to see your athlete improve and succeed. What are your thoughts on this? And are there any challenges when it comes to training an athlete with various abilities?
Yeah, you know what? Athletes tend to have the buy-in. I came from a background where, I worked a lot with people on weight loss and a lot of people in terms of pain management, and a lot of, people for that were getting training or were utilizing resistance training for different reasons. But when you have an athlete, to me, there's a bit of a buy-in, and what that means is like a goal like yourself, it, there's it's reciprocal. There's buy-in on both sides, from the coach and from the athlete as well.
Right.
Typically those athletes tend to put in that work. I mean, if I gave you homework, I could guarantee dollars to donuts that you would do it. If I give you stretches to learn, I could see that you had practiced them. I could just watch you move, or even you knew what was next. You were moving into the next stretch before I was. So that's one of those things that, in my mind or in my experience working with athletes, they tend to be quite committed to what they do. Sometimes that can even err on the side of too committed.
Yeah.
Some athletes, if you said do this tonight, they'll do it 5,000 times. So but again, those are certain personalities, but you always got to you take it day by day. But
I mean, whenever I learn like a new stretch or anything, I always tend to do them a little bit extra just so I can like gain the muscle memory. But
right, yeah. And you know what, again, yeah, I think it's sometimes we, humans, and myself included, we're a lazy bunch. We want everything, and we want it right now, and we want to put as less work as possible into it. But
yeah.
it doesn't always work out that way. So back to what I said in the beginning, like with a lofty goal, which, sounds, for some people sounds out of this world, but sometimes that's what it takes.
Yeah.
Because if it is out of this world, if the concept is so broad and so far away, it gets that person that buy-in, at that point to fully commit at that point. So, it's been my experience. I've been lucky that I've worked with athletes in a variety of different capacities. I've worked with a young girl that was trying out for archery, wanted to make the 2020 Tokyo Olympics for archery. She ended up getting a scholarship, going to the United States, full scholarship, full ride in archery. And,
That's amazing.
Again, so cool. Like what a different style of training, and I've worked with bodybuilders, and I've worked with, girls that wanted to work in bikini competitions. And I've worked with,
wow.
People that have had sore hips and can't get in and out of the car. So it's been, it's been a variety, but,
so you'd say it was super rewarding then.
Yeah. And typically it's, typically with athletes, you don't have a problem getting that real buy-in and connecting that goal to the hard work. Typically you see that they're already invested in that.
That's awesome. Great. Okay, this one's going to be a fun one. Describe 3 favorite memorable moments that stand out for you during our training together.
Well,
I told you this was going to be a fun one.
I have one, and one of which has nothing to do with training. Okay, so one that stands out, and maybe it stands out for a bad reason, but I remember, I think you were on your own this day. I think you were working out on your own. I can't remember if I was there. I don't remember being there, but maybe I was. Maybe I blocked it out. But we were doing medicine ball slams, and some of those medicine balls.
You were there that day.
I was there that day?
Yes.
Oh,
yes, you were.
So for the listeners, there's definitely balls that are called slam balls. So when you throw them to the ground, they definitely kind of stay put. What's inside them and the way they're constructed, they're not really built to kind of rebound and bounce back up. And then there's medicine balls that can be quite hard and quite bouncy. So I remember one day, so I don't remember being there. Maybe I just blocked it out of my mind, but you took a medicine ball to the chin.
To the chin.
Oh, man, it must have been like getting hit by a heavyweight boxer.
It was painful.
Oh, yeah.
I remember there was a big goose egg on my chin for a while after that.
I will say, you took it like a champ. You were, you did well. You did better than I would have. I would have milked it for all it was worth. So
I think that was a few years after my jaw surgery, so I don't think I had a lot of feeling in my chin. So that probably helped.
Well, I hope it wasn't a contribution to that. So
no. Oh no, the jaw surgery was from a birth defect, so it's all good.
So, and I do remember another time we were just the first time that you did the full row of forward walking lunges, dynamic walking lunges, no support, no stability, pretty awesome. Yeah. And I think that was at the Southdale location at that point, because that was at the second gym. So I do remember that one. I think that was pretty amazing.
That's right, because it took a long time for me to do them without any assistance. I would have to hold on to something or hold on to your hand,
or to go from. We did a lot of times where you'd have a finger across the wall, right? So
yeah.
But conquering that. I mean, again, I can't describe how hard that is for the listeners.
Hey, listeners, time to try that too.
Impeccably hard. To kind of move through time and space, to center your body, to stay upright, in that style, in that way. And the last one, I don't know if you remember this, but I came and saw you do a play. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah, that was my first play that I was in.
So I remember coming to watch you in the play. So that was always, that's definitely a memory that's the first one that stuck out in my head. Was coming to watch you do the play.
I remember that. And I still have the plaque that you got.
There you go. Do you remember what it says on it?
It says, "Follow your dreams."
I think it said
Something like
keep
keep
chasing your dreams.
chasing your dreams. Keep chasing your dreams. That's what it says.
And here you are, still doing it. So kudos
Yep.
to you, kiddo.
Thank you. That's right. Those are good. Okay. If you were asked to give advice to a new coach who is going to be starting to train an athlete with various abilities, what advice would you give to them?
Put themselves in their shoes. That's, like I said, talking about the walking lunges, if a coach had never worked with someone, with a different ability, they might think that, a walking lunge, no big deal. But I mean, it could be a big deal depending on the ability of the athlete. So I would say, put yourself in those shoes, do as they do. Right. So I would, I would practice. I would do things with my eyes closed just to feel it, just to kind of, almost mimic what you were going through. And that
Right.
sounds weird, but I mean, to me, that's preparation, right? Like,
yeah. I was gonna say a lot of my coaches now that I have at the gym, they actually they do that same thing. Close their eyes first, and then they try out the exercises. And when we first started, actually, they would do full training sessions where one of them would have be under blindfold, and then the other one would have to carry out all the explain all the exercises and everything, so they could learn the different ways to describe the activity and see what would work and what wouldn't, and just to get an idea of what I would be feeling as well. So
amazing. Yeah.
It's not weird at all. It's definitely super helpful to do that. So awesome. Well, thank you, Paul, for coming on to the podcast. You have anything else that you want to say before we finish up?
Geez, I talked a lot, but I can't stress enough.
It's all good.
I learned, Emily, I learned more from you than you learned from me. I truly believe that. I was always blessed. I always had amazing clients, and I genuinely loved personal training. But I was always so excited for our sessions, and it was never a chore. After all these years, I mean, you can honestly say I would have done it for free. It was amazing, and back to what we were talking about before, I really do think it's helped me in my growth as well. And I mean, I think about a lot. I think about your journey, and I think about, I'd love to be there at that finish line the one day that you come down. So
well, we'll see if we can make that happen.
I'll be there with cowbell screaming my
head
off.
Yes, cowbells. Yes, we need cowbells. We never got enough cowbells.
They'll probably come over and tell me I'm being too loud. So
no, there's always lots of cowbells at the races. It's all good. I'll just tell them they can be loud. So
give me that excuse to come out, and then I'll be there. Yeah, it's been exciting. Welcome. It's been exciting to kind of watch you grow and go through those paces, and it's been really cool. It's actually, you know what, it's the type of thing that any coach at any level is lucky to go through and have that. So it was really fun.
Thank you, Paul. I've definitely learned a lot from you as well, and I can't wait to see you again soon.
Awesome.
You're always welcome to come out here, and I hope to see you when I'm home visiting in Ontario. So
we will do that. Yes, absolutely. Yep, I will see you.
Bring the cowbells.
Yeah, it'll be different if we're doing some therapy and I'm trying to get you to relax. I'll leave the cowbells around for that one.
Okay. Fair enough. Awesome. Thank you, Paul, so much. Thank you, listeners, for listening to another episode of Shredding for Gold. We'll be back next week. See you all later.
Bye, guys.